Greetings, one and all, and welcome to another edition of 4.0 and Below, where the good, the fair, and the ugly comics roam. And today, our episode is a contest entry for CarlonBass's celebratory 600 subscription. And he put out a call for folks to make some videos. Of course, there are a few rules. You have to be at least 18. And I vaguely remember when I turned 18, but that was like, oh geez, that was like almost 3 decades ago now. You have to live in the continental United States. Last check, Nebraska was still a state, so yep, that's covered. And you also, again, you have to make a video and answer 4 questions to have a chance to win a pretty cool prize. So hey, let's get to it. Well, to answer the first question as to if you could have any comic book for free, well, you know, this might fall outside the parameters of the contest because it might be too much money. But like a lot of folks who are Incredible Hulk fans, one giant gaping hole in all of our collections, of course, is Incredible Hulk 181, which is the first appearance of Wolverine. And if you're anything like me, on your priority list for this issue, you know, the Hulk is number 1, the Wendigo is number 2, and Wolverine is number 3. But, you know, such is life. And so, you know, this is kind of a hard decision because I think we'll get to this in the next question a little bit, because there's another comic book that, you know, maybe, just maybe, I might take that one instead. So stay tuned for that answer. We'll be right back. Okay, now the answer to the next question is a little tricky. In, you know, what series did you follow first? Now, the first character that I sort of followed was the Incredible Hulk, but it wasn't really a monthly issue-to-issue thing. Like I mentioned in an earlier video, most of my comic buying at an earlier age was basically done whenever we got a haircut and if I behaved. And normally when I got a haircut, I didn't behave all that much. So comic books are pretty hit and miss. But where I did follow the Hulk mostly was in these old Treasury editions. These huge things that we also used to get my house, con my mom into buying me at the Gibsons. And they were great. There's these giant, huge reproductions, which were a fun read. And this one was an absolute hoot. But I think, to answer the question, what comic that I followed month to month first is probably Star Wars. And actually, Star Wars number 1 is probably another comic that, you know, if I had a choice to get one for free, it might be that one. I used to have them. I used to have a full run through about issue, oh heck, at least through like the Empire Strikes Back run. But they were lost in a horrible, horrible incident that, you know, we might talk about someday. But ever since then, I've slowly been trying to piece these back together. I've had pretty good luck with a lot of these. And of course, you know, when they went beyond the movie adaptations, if you've never read these, with the Magnificent Seven riff that they do here is an absolute scream. Because, you know, in the middle of the battle, a giant kaiju shows up that shoots laser beams out of its noggin. And, of course, you got the green space rabbit, too. And those are an absolute scream. So, yeah, Star Wars, like a lot of kids probably, was the first comic that I followed monthly. Oh, this is a tough one because it's hard to narrow down, and also it's a bit of a trick question because to me there's always a difference between what I consider the best and what are your favorites. Because, you know, the best artists in comics, you know, like your John Byrne, Neil Adams, John Buscema, of course King Kirby, and then even, you know, old school guys like Jack Davis or Wally Wood are, you know, the best of the best. But, you know, favorite-wise, like Kevin Maguire, Rags Morales, Amanda Connor, Art Adams, Mark Bailey, Keith Giffen, let's see, Paul Smith probably, and like Butch Geis, or even like Dave Cockrum, or I really like those guys a lot. But boy, narrowing it down to 3, yeah, that was fun. So coming in at number 3 is Michael Golden. Now his output, to me, compared to a lot of guys, is pretty limited. Because off the top of my head, the only series that he had was the Micronauts, and that was like only for 12 issues, but it was a pretty damn cool 12 issues. I think he did the Nom too, and also if you can get your hands on Marvel Fanfare 1 through 4 or 5, there's a story where the X-Men and Spider-Man wind up in the Savage Land, and the art in that is amazeballs. But this Micronaut stuff was very cool, and what I really liked about his art, it seemed to be like almost photorealistic, but then exaggerated a little bit, and I always thought that was really cool. Like, well, here's a good example of it. Like I said, he didn't hold a lot of series. Like guys like him and Art Adams, I never understood guys with that much talent. Why they couldn't get a regular series, and they always just seemed to be broke out for like annuals or a lot of covers. And Michael Golden did a lot of covers, and this is what I'm talking about. Just there's a ferocity to it that I really, really like, and just like the details and the lines, and it's pretty clean and highly enjoyable, and he's still at it off and on. At least as far back like in the 90s, I know he's still doing some stuff, because I always loved this cover for Jurassic Park Raptors Attack. And so yeah, Michael Golden at number 3. Stay tuned for number 2. All right, coming number 2 on my favorite artist of all time is George Perez. And what I really always loved about his art, again, it's very clean, very, very detail-oriented, and I like that his characters have a real weight to them. They're especially like the way he draws his women. They're not exaggerated or anything. They're solid. They have mass. They have skeletal structures, which is really nice. And again, he was all over the map. I mean, he was great in the Avengers. He was great on the Fantastic Four. And he did another Marvel Fanfare run where he did the Black Widow. That was actually pretty good if you can get your hands on that. And then, of course, he also did some work for DC. He did Justice League. And then, of course, most famously, he was on the new Teen Titans, Had a really cool run there with Marv Wolfman. And I also really enjoyed his run with Kurt Busiek when they rebooted the Avengers with the Heroes Return stuff, which was really, really great. So, yeah, George Perez, good stuff. And I guess that brings us to my top most favorite artist of all time. And that artist is Herb Trimpe. Insert record scratch here. Yes, Herb Trimpe or Trimp. I've heard it both ways. Now, this may seem like an odd choice to some, but you got to understand, we're not talking about best, we're talking about favorite. I grew up with this guy. This is the guy whose art style, it was the first I recognized, outright. And, I was a huge Hulk fan as a kid, grew up reading him, and when it was the 1-2 punch combo of Trimpe and inked by John Severin or even Marie Severin, I contend it was the best rendition of old Jade Jaws ever committed to 4-color. And I just loved, to me, his panels, the action to me just exploded right off the page. And, and as the action progressed from panel to panel, you could swear it was animated. It just kind of flowed together so smoothly. And The splash pages were great. His 2-page spreads were even better. He was really good, with like doing tech and military stuff. He was pretty formative on the creation of the Hulkbusters. Of course, the Hulk made mincemeat of most of that, but it was really cool. And to me, one of his greatest assets too is how cool he was at like doing forced perspective, and making little things, are these huge things. Oh, hi. Well, let's see how this plays out. Excuse us, we're shooting a video. Any minute now. Are you done? No. Hello. How are you? Thank you. Oh, geez. Speaking of giant monsters attacking, give us a minute. Uh-huh. Okay, that's it. That's it. That's it. Out you pixies go. Through the door or out the window. Yeet. Thank you. Now, where were we? Oh, yes. Forced perspective and Herb Trippy's artwork. Forgive me. That was my cat, obviously. I've totally blown my train of thought. I could reshoot this, but you know what? It's staying in. And to me, Trippy was second only to Kirby himself when it came to nightmare creatures, kit bash doodads, and stuff of cosmic whiz-bangery and stuff like that. Great cover there, Abomination and the Rhino. And he did the Hulk for seemingly forever. He did it like 7 or 8 years. And when I associate the Hulk with Herb Trimp, not Trimpy, not Dale Cohen or Todd McFarlane or anybody. It's Herb Trimpy. Herb Trimpy's the Hulk. But it wasn't just the Hulk. He was kind of all over the place. He had a little run in Marvel feature with the Ant-Man that's actually pretty cool. And it always seems like Trimpy was kind of the go-to guy on Marvel's licensed characters. And again, with his mastery of the forced perspective stuff, he was a perfect choice to do their Godzilla adaptation. And this is another book that I was followed monthly when I was a kid. These I actually managed to hang on to all these years. And again, like the monsters that he fought, the Mega Monsters 3 thing is like one of the most righteous kaiju battles I've ever seen, in print form. And of course he also did the Shogun Warriors. And again, the forced perspective stuff is just so trippy and so mind-blowing. And again, like I said, I grew up with this guy. I think he's great. To me, this dude was my Kirby. And so, that's why he's the choice for my top favorite artist of all time. And if you thought that answer was weird, just wait till you see my answer for the next question. Okay, then. My pick for comic book franchise or character that most deserves its own film franchise is Rom Space Knight. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this character, Rom was based on an old Mattel toy that went absolutely nowhere. But the comic that sprung from it lasted, several years and over 70 issues. Most of them were written by Bill Mantlo, a very underrated comic scribe in my book. A lot of the art was done by Sal Buscema. And, I really got into it, and I really dug it. And also, circling back a little bit, a lot of the covers were done by Michael Golden. And so we can check a couple of those out. That's number 7, issue number 9, and issue number 11. Okay. Now, the story behind Rom here is from the planet Galador, who there was a really long war between the Galadorians and these evil race of aliens. And actually, it's one of the coolest things why I really think this deserves a film franchise because Rom had some of the coolest alien adversaries to ever grace a comic book page in the Dire Wraiths. Now, the Dire Wraiths were split into two factions. There was like the Science Wraiths, who were all male, and the Sorcery Wraiths, who were all female. And about halfway through the run, the female Wraiths basically rebelled and sort of went all genocidal on their male counterparts and basically wiped them out. And all the Wraiths are shape changers, so they can assume the identity of anyone, by making them look at it. At least the males could. The females could do it too, but the females were a little different because they had these great forked tongues that they would use, and they'd stab you in the back of the head and essentially suck your brain out, and get all your memories and thoughts, and then assume your identity. And it was really quite gruesome and kind of awesome. And frankly, I think they ended the Wraith War around issue 50, and I think the series kind of fell apart after that. But no, it was really good, and I think this would make an excellent movie, especially if you included the Civil War between the Dire Wraiths. And so, yeah, that's my choice for that. And I guess that'll wrap up this little contest entry. Once again, congratulations to CarlonBass for the 600 subscribers. And thanks for tuning in to this latest episode of 4.0 and below. Stay tuned, because we'll be back with more comic haul videos and whatever else we can dig up out of the long boxes. So stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.